What's up, people? I'm Erica, and this is Cocktails and Capitalism, a podcast that pairs crafted beverages with stories distilled from our capitalist hellscape. And I'm so excited about today's episode. We're joined by Elodie. Elodie is a relationship anarchist and the creator of a project called Modern Cinderella's ITALIA. This project also includes Instagram and TikTok pages, as well as a podcast. Most of the content is in Italian, but a few podcast episodes are in English. She is a polyamorous intersectional feminist and has decided to remain child-free and single. Elodie is also a postdoctoral scholar in the field of structural engineering at UCSD. Welcome on the show, Elodie. How are you doing?
Hi, Erica. Thanks for having me. I'm a fan of yours, and I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, that's so
and
nice.
I can't wait to drink the cocktail.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about it. This one's going to be a special one. I waited to open the champagne that goes into this cocktail until right now, so I'm going to do that really quickly.
I'm going to go do that in the kitchen, and I'm going to turn this mic to hear you.
Okay, I don't know. This is going to be
You got to take
messy.
the headphones off, please,
Yeah.
before.
Okay, real quick.
All right. Oh, God.
Woo!
Oh, very clean.
Woohoo! No mess or anything. And get some nice ASMR champagne being poured into the glass.
Oh.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. She opens the champagne in the kitchen and then overpours the drink.
And spills it on myself. I don't think I got it on anything bad. Well, I can't wait to taste it. I tasted some of the other ingredients. This cocktail is called Modern Cinderella, after her project. Oh, fuck me.
Oh,
I
my God. I did it again.
just did it again. I can't pour champagne, apparently.
So it's carbonated is one thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Well, cheers to Elodie. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh my God, so good.
Wow.
Yeah?
Oh my God, it's strong.
It's a little strong.
The last time I drank it on a Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m., I was 25, I think.
Well, I'm glad to take you back to those fun times, you know?
Hey, I'm here alone tonight. Who knows where I'm going? Probably sleeping.
Yeah. Did you get a nap before recording?
No, actually I was not. I just went in bed. I was watching for the 6th time RuPaul's Drag Race. And I just I went in bed, but I was not. I'm such a huge fan, so.
That's awesome. He's pretty
It's
dope.
so good. Yes.
So good. For listeners out there, this drink is kind of a spicy riff on the French 75. Elodie thought that we should add something that was spicy in it because it matches her personality, and I fucking love that. She really likes the color pink, and it kind of matches with a lot of the themes that we're going to be tackling and the kind of gender norms that she's going to be kind of pulling apart in some of these discussions. So yeah, this is such a interesting special drink. What do you think of the taste altogether?
And also it has Italian ingredients, which is very, very important because as you can tell, not only my, project is all in Italian, but of course, clearly I'm also from Italy. Otherwise, I'm not faking this accent just for the listeners.
That's what the accent. I knew it. It sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it.
Couldn't peg it?
Yeah.
I love it. It's very strong for a 3 p.m. drink, but I love it. It's going to be a great night.
Hell yeah. The spiciness together with the champagne and the strawberry flavor, I'm really, really into that. So I didn't know how it was all going to kind of come together, but it's so perfect.
No, it is great.
Jesse, you did so good. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse.
For the episode today, we're going to be talking about love under capitalism, how love is killed by capitalism in so many ways, and how love actually can work against capitalism. Elodie did a brilliant job of laying out a lot of these concepts for us. So I can't wait to just kind of hand it over to you, let you explain some of these things that you're so much more familiar with than I am.
I just thought about the irony of the fact that I'm going to become a love expert when, the fact that a single child-free woman could be a love expert is considered out of this world, right?
That's true. That's amazing. I love that.
I want to be the love expert, though, so I accept this challenge.
Very good. Cheers to you.
So the first thing that I really want to discuss is answering the question, why do we care? Why is love important? And why love is political? Because sometimes, and I think often, love is seen as something personal, and love is seen as something that has nothing to do with politics, and love is seen as something that is womanly, feminine, and it's something that only women care about, which is wrong in so many ways.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I think these are wrong. And I think that actually the way we love is political, is deeply political. Not only that, but the way we love can be really revolutionary and can have an incredible power. That is what we will kind of like talk about in this episode. And the reality is that the way we love is shaped by capitalism. I didn't make up this theory. We'll talk about this from Alexandra Kollontai. So, I wish this was my idea. It's not. It's been, said by other people smarter than me. But the reality is that the power structure has always shaped the way we love. And capitalism and the patriarchy really did a really good way at telling us, how we should love to be in their own interest at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of the opposite. So we really need to re-examine not only the way we love, but the way we can use love to get out of this mass capitalistic hellscape where we are and try to use love to kind of get out of it. So I think that this is really why it's important to talk about it.
Yeah.
And before we start talking about it, and I really, want to talk about my story and use my story to talk about love, I also want to just give another premise. And I want all of you listening to this episode to kind of like close your eyes. If you can, if you're driving, do not close your eyes.
Good point.
And think about what love means, what the stories about true love are. What is true love according to 2022 Westerner societies? And I think that I'm probably right for a lot of you thinking that, the stories that we're told about love is that love happens within a couple, a romantic couple. Love is monogamous. And love is something where, like, if it's true love, you're going to get married and have kids. So love, this is the definition. So in a certain sense, it's a very monolithic and very rigid definition of what love is. And also, I cannot stress this enough. Love is seen as something personal. Love is your choice. Love is within your, nuclear family. This is something you will hear a lot throughout this episode. But love is not something collective or political. Love is just your personal choice.
Yeah.
So I want to keep this idea in mind as we move through.
That's a brilliant introduction, though, because you're confronting a lot of the basic assumptions that we carry with us and that we've been bombarded by throughout our lives, that like this is kind of like something that women and weak people fixate on, and it's not really any business that we should really spend a lot of time thinking about and working through. It's kind of pushed to the sidelines of society. And
every time capitalism really tried to brainwash on something, that that's the key. You know that there is a reason, because capitalism is very freaking smart. Oh, can I swear?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Do a big cuss. Yeah. Go again with a big cuss.
Okay. So capitalism is very fucking smart. So every time it pushes, and you can tell that there is a lot of energy to convince us of something, that that's the key. They don't want us to think otherwise. And so that's why, again, like, this is another proof to me that the way we love is so, so, so important.
And it's a threat to capitalism in some ways. Yeah.
Am I still going to be allowed to like The Princess Bride after this episode?
I mean, it's your own choice, man.
Man, it's like my favorite movie.
It's like my least favorite movie.
Yeah, but you suck. You suck, dude.
Yeah, I know I suck. Sorry.
Princesses are really difficult. It's a tough sell. And that's why the project is called Modern Cinderellas, because it's kind of like Cinderella represents everything I hate. And so it's like the redefinition of what women are, instead of this like idealized and silly version of what should be, is sad.
Oh, that's totally what I should have asked you at the beginning, is like, explain the name.
But now we have it.
Yeah. Nice. So, Elide, I was hoping that you could kind of present some of your own personal story, since this is a storytelling podcast, to kind of ground the theory and the concepts that you're going to be sharing with us later in the episode. What were your own personal experiences with love and relationships that helped you formulate these philosophies about how you want to approach human relationships?
I think it's interesting because my story is so different from the norm that I really think it shows through my personal story, the evolution of kind of like my thought and how I came to these conclusions. So my story is that like I was never good with relationships. Like since I was a teenager, I don't know. I've always felt that there was something that did not work for me. So for example, I have a lot of funny stories, but the first one, so my first boyfriend, I had it when I was 14. Mm-hmm. And so I was in 8th grade at the last year of what here is called middle school. Mm-hmm. And after a month, I broke up with him because I wanted my freedom back.
I'm going to go out on the town. I'm going to go party with my friends.
We could stay here and discuss for hours about what my freedom was. Because also I'm from like a kind of like a village in Italy. I didn't even have a moped to go around. So what was my freedom?
I'm picturing like two 14-year-olds like sitting at the dinner table together, and you're like, "You never take me out anymore, Antonio." And he's like, we went to dinner last week.
Oh my God. Taking to dinner, which was money. We had just the money from, I don't even know. Did I have money? And again, like I couldn't move from home physically because I was in this like village far from the school.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even, I don't know what freedom meant to a 14-year-old Italian girl from the countryside.
But it meant something to you. It meant a lot.
But it meant something. And so right away, it's so interesting for me to think about that episode because it was not me trying to be different or trying to be... No, it was just me experiencing something that I didn't feel it was right.
Yeah. Didn't sit well with you.
And so, but also I have like others, so, you know, that's why like I always had boyfriends. It's not that I'm not aromantic or asexual. Like I kind of enjoy the idea of relationships. I mean, the practice is very different, but that's not, the problem. Like another idea is like when I was 17, I was, my boyfriend was like one of my classmates. This was high school, and he really wanted to celebrate Valentine's Day. And so we had to break up because for me, it's like I was I just plainly refused to celebrate Valentine's Day. I just didn't understand the concept. I hated it. And so it's interesting because for me, and this is a sentence I always say on Modern Cinderella, is like, I've never been happy in a relationship like I'm happy when I'm single. And this is against everything, against what society tells us. Society tells us that being in a relationship is our dream as women. It's our main thing that we want in life. Our biggest accomplishment is like getting married. But for me, like even that young, it didn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. You knew though.
Yes. It's so interesting because this is something that really kind of like I could feel without having the words to express why you fully understand, but I felt it.
This really reminds me of like the attitude that I had in elementary school as a child when people were dating in 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 4th grade, like people are dating and holding hands and stuff. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, you can't have sex at this age. You can't do any of these things.
So what's the point?
What's the fucking point of being in a relationship? Why would you even do that? And like people like asked me out in like 4th grade, 3rd grade. And I was like, what are you talking about? This is ridiculous. Like, we're just going to hold hands? Like, that's stupid.
And for me, like, the problem is not people who do it. The problem is the normalization. And so it kind of reminds me of something else as a concept that is called amatonormativity. That is the idea that, first of all, we should all want to be in a romantic relationship. And second, that the only way of like having true love is within a romantic relationship. So this is a bit of a tangent, but this reminds me of that. So the idea that society tells us that the way we love is all the same. So we all need to go through this phase like, okay, when you're in 4th grade, you're holding hands. When you're in 8th grade, you have your first kiss or whatever you do in 8th grade. I don't know. But it kind of goes back to like, there are a lot of people who don't feel like that. And feeling like that is not wrong, but it shouldn't be the norm. We shouldn't all be pushed in that freaking mold because that mold works for some people and it doesn't freaking work for a lot of us.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
So why, spoiler alert, so why? are we pushed in that mold? Da da da. But so going back to my stories of when I was a teenager, there were so many things that I thought they were off from the way I was told that relationship and quote unquote true love should work. So first of all, I felt that being in a relationship was kind of really seen as a badge of honor, independently from the freaking quality of the relationship. So there were a lot of girls who had and this kind of still happens, these girls or women who had these the most awful boyfriends, or husbands or whatever. And there is still this idea that they're better and it's better to be in that situation than to be single, because alone, the fact that single and alone are synonymous, it drives me insane completely.
Interesting. God, I wouldn't have even drawn that parallel there, but it's so right. That's what people assume. If you're single, you're totally alone and poor you.
Yeah, because creating stereotypes against single women is part of the way of convincing us that we need to be in relationship. And again, we will see why in a second. So that was one of the problems. But also the idea that women had to be constantly obsessed with, their romantic connection. So there was this stereotype of women that had nothing to talk about except relationships. And I hate that stereotype so much that even for me it's difficult. And now I found my own balance, and it's okay for my friends to talk about their relationship. But the idea is that I don't want that to monopolize conversation, because we women, we're not bidimensional beings. We have so much else in life. So it's okay if you want to tell me about, a boyfriend or whatever. But it needs to be clear that women have something more in life than that.
That isn't how they measure their success or measure their accomplishments as a human being.
And also, so another thing that I had a problem with, and I know that this is just me, so this is not a judgment for anyone else, but I always had problem allowing people to call me their girlfriend, because I feel that word is so full of implication of ownership, honestly.
Possession.
And this is not a personal, this is not the single person's fault. This is just the way it's seen. So I always felt that if instead of being Elide, I was, I don't know, Antonio's girlfriend or whatever we mentioned, any random Italian name, his girlfriend, I felt I was not seen as 100% of an independent being, but I was seen as something like an appendix of someone else. And for me, that was always a no. So, oh my God, there is another story. So when I was 22 or 23, after 1 year that we were dating, secretly, of course, because that's how I did my relationships, but one of my best friends, she dared call me. So she dared talk to him and say, oh, your girlfriend said that, referring to me. Oh my God, you've rarely seen me that angry. I was just pissed out of my mind. She's still my best friend, so we still, it's okay. They know me. But, for me, it was always I always felt I didn't want that, because this society kind of has this idea that women lose a little bit of who they are when they have a partner.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we don't even need to start talking about the culture of jealousy. I did a survey on my page about jealousy, and there were a lot of women or girls, I don't know their age, but they were saying, oh, I'm so lucky because my boyfriend lets me go out with my friends.
Oh, God.
And I was let you? We don't even, it's so, that idea that your partner needs to allow you to do something is so internalized that we consider it a thing. Oh, he lets me do that, so it's great. It's the fact that you think that you need permission, it's a problem.
Yeah. So is it purely the ownership aspect of being called a girlfriend that bothers you, or is there another aspect of it stripping you of your singularity, your individuality, your personhood?
Yeah, I think it's a very deep thing. I do feel that it is both. So there is a sense of identity, that I don't want my identity to be associated in that way with someone else. And if you think about it, it doesn't happen with friendships. You don't define someone, unless specific contact, but you don't define someone oh, that's blah, blah, blah's best friend. It's no, it's, person's name.
It's that person's name. Yeah.
And so there is a certain sense of identity that I felt. And again, I'm not saying that it's true. I'm just saying that that's the way I felt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because I was brainwashed by this society putting all these weird pressures on relationships.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing that was, it really upset me when I was, growing up is the fact that when you found a boyfriend, you were supposed to kind of like dump all your friends because your boyfriend is supposed to be more important than your best friends. Yeah. And for me, it was never like that. So every time I was dating someone, it was always like, I always made it clear from the beginning. I was like, you're never going to be as important. Like, you're never going to be more important than my best friends, number one. And your best shot is to be as important as my best friend. But if you think you're going to be more important than them, tough luck. It's just not going to happen. But if you think about it, there is no rule. It shouldn't be like that. Like, who said that? Who decided that romantic partners are intrinsically more important than friends? It's capitalism.
There's the hierarchy emerging, the capitalist fed hierarchy in relationships. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes. And so kind of like summarizing this idea, it's just like I've always felt that when I was in a relationship, I couldn't really fully be myself. Mm-hmm. So I always had to take away parts of who I was to fit into this mold. So the example that I give is just imagine that they're like, how they're called the pegs where you get things in. You know, those toys for
like
kids
blocks
where you have a shape.
And stuff. Yeah, like
I don't know if they have a specific name.
Yeah, I don't know
what you're talking about.
I know what you're talking about too.
Called.
Yeah. Child block peg.
Child block peg hold box games. You know.
I don't know. Okay, I'm not gonna say that because I don't know. Sometimes it's like
that sounds like bullshit.
Yes. But so the idea is like, it's kind of like I was told that I needed to fit this like round mold. But the reality is that I'm a star shape. So every time I was trying to fit this like small circle, I had to cut out all my, my star spikes.
Oh, not your spikes.
Spikes.
My spikes. My spicy spikes.
My spicy spikes. Love it.
This is a cocktail, by the way. The spicy spikes is a cocktail.
It's working its magic.
And again, this was mostly like, especially my teenage years and my 20s, was mostly like a feeling than something conscious or rational. I didn't know why. And I actually always felt it was me. So I always felt, okay, society is telling me that everyone is like that. I'm not like that. So clearly there's a problem with me.
Yeah.
So that's the way I felt throughout my 20s, which is really freaking sad. But, that it's okay. I turned out good.
But I mean, like, amazing that you've built a huge community of people supporting you who are rallying around the very ideas that you thought were so abnormal and so outlandish that it's just very encouraging that you have formed that community after having thought that you were so on the fringes of any kind of social norm with your relationship.
And I think this, like, a lot of people think I had this survey on Modern Cinderella the other day, and everyone thinks like, oh, but, finding friends is so difficult. It's like, yeah, if you don't prioritize friends, if you don't prioritize community, it is very difficult. You're right. But the reality is that if that's your priority, you will find that there are a lot of people like you. And because I felt like this since I was so young, I'm lucky that a lot of my best friends who are still my best friend, they are, we met in our early 20s. Mm-hmm. And we are both people who grew together because we've been friends for so long. Yeah. But we are both like all the type of people who just prioritize friendship. Mm-hmm. And so that's how and even one of them is married. So it's not even a question of being in a relationship or not, but it's a question of what are your priorities, what is your sense of values in life. And this person who's like Julia, who's married, like she's married and sure, we don't talk every day, but like still like we talk very regularly. We text several times a week. And she never made me feel like I was less important than her husband. Never.
That's awesome.
So it's not really a question like, okay, you're living together, you're married, it's your time. It's also a question of your attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe her and her husband only talk a few times a week.
Nice balance there.
Yeah.
So it sounds like for a long time for you, you had a sense, a feeling that you had a different approach to these things than other people. At what point did these feelings kind of solidify into a different life philosophy and approach to relationships?
Until now, if you paid attention, you realize that I've been talking to my teenage years and my 20s, but, I'm 37, so I still... So everything changed, actually. So I got my PhD at UCSD, and I got my PhD when I was 31, 31, yes.
Nice.
And then I found a job in the Bay Area from San Diego, and so I moved up to the Bay in 2017. And when I moved to the Bay, I don't remember how, so I don't know how, but I discovered the world of ethical non-monogamy and polyamory. And that is really what changed a lot for me, because really that philosophy behind a lot of the ethical non-monogamy style really helped me understand that I was not alone, because actually it was kind of like a well-developed philosophy, and it was things that, I felt subconsciously, but when I, read them in a book, in articles or whatever, I realized that it was stuff that people have been thinking about it for like decades. It's not like, if not hundreds of years.
That was like when I read Marx of like, oh, all these things that I was having feelings and impulses about and knew that there was something wrong. And it's all been thought out. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like, isn't surplus value my original thoughts? Like, no.
Like, no. Damn it, fucking Marx. God damn you, Marx. I mean, thank you.
But yeah, in a certain sense, yes, it's something that you've always thought, but like put in words. Yeah. So that's the way I felt when I started. I started like reading a bunch of the books related from like ethical non-monogamy and polyamory, like The Ethical Slut, Sex at Dawn, More Than Two, all these like landmark books of polyamory. And they reflected so much my worldview. And so for a lot of time, I kind of like started thinking, okay, so maybe I'm not bad at relationships. Maybe I'm bad at monogamy, but I could be good at poly relationships.
Yeah.
And this is a detail that is important because it's going to come up later. So, I mean, there were so many things that I discovered about the ethical non-monogamy world. So, for example, the idea that...
Can you explain what that is? The concept is?
Oh, shit. Okay,
yeah,
yes.
What's unethical non-monogamy? Is that just like...
Unethical non-monogamy is cheating, which, if you go to Italy, that's actually the most well-known form of non-monogamy.
Yeah, okay.
So, monogamy, it means that, you have one partner, and non-monogamy, you have... And it is a little bit more... It's way more complicated because... What does it mean having a partner? It's just about agreements. But in general, with monogamy, it's intended just so you have some sort of like loyalty within the couple, especially like sexual exclusivity. So ethical non-monogamy is like an entire word. So we use that word as an umbrella word, but within that there is like everything, because it really, honestly, every couple could create their own agreement to be non-monogamous. So the ethical non-monogamy word goes from the don't ask, don't tell strategy, where people know that they, for example, have other partners or they sleep with other people, but they have this agreement of not telling each other. So it's still considered ethical because in theory there is an agreement.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It is criticized within the community, but, in theory, it's still considered ethical within the ethical non-monogamy umbrella. And then there is the full polyamory, where you have relationships with different people. So there are most of the time, like couples involved, and they might know each other. So it can be kind of a chosen family. It's called the polycule. So all these, people with all their non-monogamous partners. Yeah. Some of the partners could also be monogamous because you could have a poly-mono relationship. But yeah, that could be another episode because it's like a whole... And again, what I want to emphasize is just every couple really make their own rule. And so it's virtually impossible to give a general trend, because the only common denominator is that it needs to be ethical, in the meaning that there need to be agreement of what's going on between the partners.
Yeah. Awesome. That makes so much sense, the ethical component there. Just that being the agreement that you've arranged between the two partners, or however many partners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's what works for them. This is my thing. It's just they're not a pre-made set of rules. It's just whatever the partners want. And actually, since we're talking about these societal scripts on how relationships should go, this is called the relationship escalator in the non-monogamy world. So what is the relationship escalator? I think it's a concept that is very interesting. And it's basically the societal script of how relationships should go. So how should relationships go? So you meet someone, You start dating, but you're not exclusive. And then you become exclusive. And then you date for a certain amount of time. And then you go live together. And then there is the engagement ring and the proposal. And then you get married. And then you have kids. And the mortgage at some point. I forgot the mortgage, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're doing that anymore.
yeah, we don't do mortgages anymore. In this capitalist hellscape.
People in California, there are no mortgages. No one can afford it.
Just
so
get
we skip
roommates
it.
now.
Yeah, those are just all of our parents. They bought all of those.
Exactly. So no mortgages for us. But the idea is like, it's kind of pre-made. So people don't, there are variations clearly, but there is kind of a societal agreement that that's how relationship works. So that's why it's called an escalator, because it's not, you're not thinking about each step. You're just going up, knowing where it leads, knowing that the top is, marriage and having kids. And then you can try to maybe skip steps or something like that. But that's kind of really the script.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the big difference is funny because when I talk to my monogamous friends, because I do have monogamous friends, I realize that a lot of these assumptions are kind of, they don't even think about it. They give it for granted. That's the way it works. Well, it's funny because in the poly world, you cannot give for granted anything because all the agreements are stuff that you need to decide with with everyone involved, kind of.
I have a complicated relationship with polyamory. I have never fully tried it myself, but having dated people when I was like an undergraduate student. So there was this one night where I slept with someone that I didn't realize had another partner and that he was in an open relationship, a polyamorous relationship. And then the next morning I wake up and it's like a meeting where I have to go to the like dining room table, sit down with her, have this discussion about the agreements there in that relationship. And I was like, what the fuck? I was not privy to any of this. I did not sign up for this. And I don't want to be in a relationship with multiple people right now. I'm just like, this is so complicated. I freaked out.
To me, that's not ethical because this person should have told you before. You said, I didn't sign up for this. And that's the problem. Like you should have, this person should have told you, hey, before anything happens, I want to let you know that I have this other partner and we're in an open relationship and she is my primary partner. I don't know what the agreement between them was. Totally. It's like, and before sleeping with someone, we have the agreement that she needs to meet this other person. Yeah. And you could have been like, no, like, dude, this is not for me, you're respecting, this is not for me. But the fact that this person didn't tell you before, it's a big red flag for me. That's not ethical.
That's absolutely true. I'm so glad you made that distinction. In this one fucking case, it was like I was playing a game of cards with friends and we were getting really wasted. And I thought I was playing footsie with my girlfriend and I was playing footsie with this dude. And then we ended up fucking. So I was like, oh shit. Like this. Yeah. So he didn't have time to like have conversations.
Under the table and you're like, your foot's caressing someone and you look over at your girlfriend and you're like giving her eyebrows and she's like, what the fuck? And then the guy looks at you and he's giving you eyebrows and you're like, oh shit. And then smash cut to the bedroom where it's just like, blah, 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 blah.
Smash cut to the smash cut.
But not having time is not an excuse.
Yeah.
To be fair. And I am a little bit judgy of, people who give polyamory a bad reputation. I have to be honest, I admit my, limits here. Because there are already so many bad stereotypes about us. And then if we have these people just saying, I'm ethical and monogamous, then they are not. Yeah. Then, at the end of the day, the people suffering from this is us. The people who are really trying to do their best. Granted, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying
none of us are, but that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that there are some of those standards in that society, in that community, because it's a difficult.
And there are creeps everywhere, right? So it's not that
there's creeps and assholes everywhere.
Exactly. So it's not that being poly prevents you from being an asshole. In general, poly people are better at communication because if you really want to do it seriously, there is so much communication you need to do. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly.
I know that's one of my issues with it is just like communicating with one person in one relationship, it feels so hard and heavy for me already that
God, who wants to put that much effort into a relationship? Fuck me. Like, you want to talk about the relationship more? Kill me.
I mean, that was a little bit of an extreme take on it, but yes, no, that is what I was going for with that.
But it is kind of true. Like, you really have to be on top of your communication skills to be poly.
Yeah, totally.
So another thing that I really felt it was great about the ethical monogamy in general was the fact that I didn't feel the kind of shaming or shaming about my sexual past that I always felt in monogamous relationships. And just based on this one, I would never, ever, ever go back to monogamy, which, I mean, I'm not going to do it anyways. But with my previously kind of monogamous kind of boyfriends, I don't even know how to call it because it was always kind of secretive relationships. Like, it was always weird. But there was always this idea of like, oh, don't tell me the people you slept with in the past because I find it disgusting. You know, said it with like different tones.
Totally.
And for me, it's like, but those stories are so fun and I'm so proud of them. Why don't you want to know?
I've definitely been there.
And so I was kind of like, why are you putting your sexual shame on me? It doesn't belong. Like, no shame. Yeah. And when I found poly, and not only there is in general, again, or my experience, no shame of your sexual past, there is no shame of your present sexual, thing, right? Because like, people know what you're doing. And especially because I've always been in the situation where like I was telling everything to everyone without going into detail because that's privacy, but also everyone knew the basic reality of my, life or who I was dating. And for me, it's like, I want to, like, if I tell people, it's because it's a fun story and it's a fun thing. Like, it's not, if you want to shame me, then for me, it's like, it's a freaking no, red flag, never going to happen again.
Yeah.
So that for me was very important. I know there are a lot of poly or ethical monogamous concepts being kind of like thrown in every direction. Another one that I read and immediately I felt drawn to is the concept of solo poly. So solo poly, there are a ton of different definitions, like everything I said. So, because again, the community is so big and this is not like an academia where you have to give a rigorous definition because someone is, writing a thesis. There are a lot of people with different experiences. So my favorite one about, I want to read it because I think I want to, in this case, be accurate in terms of definition of what solo poly is. So it says, we prefer to present and operate as individuals, and we are not interested in that merging of lives and identities typical of couples. So we're not interested in like merging finances or homes. And if you think about what you asked me before about my sense of identity and why I didn't want someone to call me their girlfriend, this goes back to it. Like when I read this definition, I was like, shit, like there are other people who felt like me so much, they created a definition of it.
Yeah.
And so this is the definition of solo poly, which I identify with. And also, I'm going to try to do like plugins of things that I like. So if you're interested in the solo poly, there's a great Instagram page that talks about it. The page is called Unapologetically. So it's like unapologetically, but unapologetically. That's awesome. And it's great. I think her page is amazing.
I'll definitely check that out.
Another concept that I really related to, and this is the way you introduced me, in my introduction, is the concept of relationship anarchy. And again, this is something I always felt. I just didn't know there was a word for it.
Yeah.
And I want to read something that I found from the Relationship Anarchy Manifesto that says, relationship anarchy questions the idea that love is a limited resource that can only be real if restricted to a couple. You have the capacity to love more than one person and one relationship, and the love felt for that person does not diminish the love felt for another. And this is very important. Don't rank and compare people and relationships. Cherish the individual and your connection to them. One person in your life does not need to be named primary for the relationship to be real. And this again goes back to all my story of like, my friends being my, main people in my life and me not wanting to tell anyone they were more important than my friend, or even like among my best friends, like I don't rank them. Like they're important because they've been in my life for so long and, I love them equally. I just share with them a different part of who I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also this idea of ranking. So the obsession for ranking drives me fucking insane. So this idea that we always have to say, oh, you are the most important, you are the most beautiful, you are the blah, 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 and all these competitions. It's like ranking is just pure capitalism. And I don't think we should buy into that because there is also no need. Like, what is the need of constantly ranking people or constantly ranking things? There's just no reason. Like,
and it only divides us by doing that. It's not something that like solidifies a social unit. It's something that divides up a social unit.
And also it doesn't make us appreciate the differences and diversity. For example, so this is an example I came up with. It's nothing to do with love, but it's like, okay, so let's imagine that there are like 5 types of vegan milk that I like. I'm vegan. So I could be here and say, oh, the Califia milk or whatever, that is my most favorite one or whatever. But the reality is that I can barely afford it, so I never buy it. Or I could be here and say, I'm so glad that we have 4 different types of vegan milks, because depending on how I feel that day, the money in my bank account or whatever, I can decide which one to pick. And I appreciate them each for their features. So one of them is great, but it's $6 a bottle. The other one is a little bit less good, but it's $4. And I'm so glad I have diversity. So instead of ranking, I just appreciate what I have. I hate ranking. I just...
What would you say are your top 3 reasons that you think ranking things is a negative?
Are you asking me to do some meta ranking?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and especially ranking people is so... I find it so humiliating. Like, who wants to be told you're never gonna be you're never gonna be important in my life? And also, starting like talking about the fact like, I'm lucky that I have a big community and a lot of friends, but also I don't start a friendship, like I don't meet someone and tell them right away, it's like, you know what, yeah, I have a partner, so you're never gonna be that important, which is what a lot of people actually imply.
Yeah.
And so can you blame people for not wanting to be in their life? Like for me, if someone would, I would meet someone and this person would make it clear from the first day that I was never going to be important in their lives, just like, yeah, fuck off. Like, next.
Okay, yeah. Not worth my time.
Nope.
Can you speak a little bit about some of the complications that arise in these relationships?
Yeah, so first of all, your communication skills need to be on freaking point because there is so much talking going on. Yeah. So that is definitely a fact. But also managing jealousy, it's so hard.
Yeah.
Because some people think that you can be poly, only if you don't feel jealousy, which is BS, because I think that, even a lot of poly people feel jealousy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Jealousy is just very normal. It's, stems from some of our insecurities and also just a very human fear of losing a person we love. So
yeah, totally.
Very, natural. What changes between poly and mono people is generally the way we manage jealousy. So in a monogamous relationship, there are a lot of rules or things that people can't do, so that you try not to find yourself in the situation in general. While you can do that when you are, polyamorous in general, or you shouldn't be doing that because that's not the point. And so you really have to try to find a solution like either communicating or really dealing with your own freaking insecurities, which is not easy.
Yeah.
No, I'm not up for that.
You're not up for that?
No, I'm not doing that. No.
A lot of people aren't doing that.
but there is so much growth. Like I developed so much of...
no.
Get out of here.
Count me out.
Yeah.
Growth?
There is a lot of work. Like, yeah, I was like dating this like married guy when I was up in the Bay, and I was like fucking crazy in love with him. And I was never jealous of the wife. I loved the wife. The wife was freaking amazing.
That's nice.
But there was a point where I thought he was gonna, go on first dates with other people, which, by the way, was always in my mind. It was just not even a reality because he didn't have time. But in my mind, he was. And I was just like, I had entire days where I felt so jealous. He was like, I was just thinking, I'm not going to be the new and fun person anymore.
Yeah.
So it's clearly not going to care about me anymore. But I didn't want to put it on him because this was not it was not even going on dates. That was just in my mind. Yeah. So that's how you understand that it's really about my personal insecurities. And so I really had to, I did a lot of work on myself, thanks to jealousy at the end of the day, to develop my own sense of, security. And the idea is kind of like, look, at the end of the day, we are, imagine that each of us is a light bulb. And we are all light bulbs of different color. Like, I'm clearly a bright pink light bulb. Like, super fluo bright pink. The best thing that we can do is finding people who are attracted by our color. So what I was thinking in my mind at the time is like, okay, if this person doesn't like bright pink, he's never going to like me. And there is no point in me in trying to be, yellow because he likes yellow, and then I'm gonna just turn myself into what, an orange? I don't even know. And then I'm gonna start to be attracting orange people. I don't even like orange. So for me, it's like, yeah, fuck orange. I don't care.
It's a hot take here on the Cocktails and Capitalism podcast.
Hot takes. Oh, we deliver.
Hey, look, if you identify as an orange light bulb, fuck you. Turn off this podcast right now. You piece of shit.
Go fuck yourselves.
You orange piece of shit. Like, we don't care. But the idea is kind of like the only thing I can do in my life is being the brightest pink light I can possibly be and find people who like bright pink light.
Yeah,
and that's
totally.
it. And so with that kind of mental trick, I managed to calm my jealousy down. But jealousy is so freaking tricky because it starts from within you.
Yeah. I mean, I've struggled with intense jealousy, like really extreme and intense jealousy that I've like over the years found a way to manage much more and keep much more in check. But largely that came out of like logical reasoning that I had to do where I was like, well, if there's something to be jealous about, there's no reason to be jealous anymore. And if there isn't something to be jealous about, then there's nothing to be jealous about. So get the fuck over it. Like, that was basically my logic that I used as a teenager to kind of wean myself off of some of the like intense jealousy that I was experiencing.
I don't want to tell a story. I'm going to get in trouble with the law, but I'm an immigrant.
Oh, shit. No, I want to hear the story.
Maybe we'll do that before we come back from the break.
Yeah, okay.
I'm Italian. We're very passionate. So
she did like a double homicide.
Shit, dude.
Except for that was the only 2 homicides in my life.
Cool. Okay, well, then you're fine, dude.
So you're talking about using jealousy as like a tool for self-reflection, kind of.
Yeah.
It's like an impetus for growth.
Because jealousy is so powerful. So it's kind of like a pile of shit where stuff grow very fast because it's a pile of shit. That's manure, right?
I love the way your brain works, dude. I really love it. Genius.
And so, yes, that's on point. But then, so the conclusion of this very long story about my life is that even like after, I mean, I'm poly, but after being poly for several years, I realized that not only I'm poly, but the reality is that I don't want a relationship. I just want to be single. I'm so much happier when I'm single.
I want to know what you mean when you say single. Like, what does that mean?
So my definition of single is that I don't have romantic partners, nor I'm interested in having romantic partners.
And when you say romantic partner, you mean like you still have sexual relationships, intimate relationships, or no?
Emotional.
Yes, but not in a partnership way. Like not in a way where like I talk to people daily or even whatever. Just like I don't want to feel a romantic attachment to anyone. I'm not interested in a romantic connection. The only word I can use to describe it is romantic.
Yeah.
So, sex is okay. I'm not saying no sex, just to be clear. Sex is cool, but without the romantic attachment, which I still have to figure out how that's gonna work because people I'm dating up freaking sucks and no one understands my concepts. But, I have time. I'll figure it out. Trial and error. A lot of errors.
But isn't polyamory by definition lots of relationships? Like
polyamory is a style of life. Like when you can be monogamous and single and you can be poly and single and this is a great question. So thanks for asking because this is very important. Being polyamorous is just a way of seeing life and love that is different than monogamous. So it's a way of seeing love in a different way that we will talk more about because I don't want to be without love. That sounds like freaking horrible life.
No.
But the reality is that my definition of love is different.
So you want to have love without having romantic relationships?
I do have love without having romantic relationships. I do have a lot of love in my life. And this goes back to that preconception of single women being alone. I'm the least alone person I've ever met. Like, I'm not alone because I have a very tight group of best friends. I think it's crazy because if you think about it, there is not a precise word to define people like me. So a person who is single and wants to remain single, so not having romantic partners, there is not even a word. So this is so out of what people think about that there is not even a freaking word, which I find completely crazy. Because the reality is that I think society just cannot conceive someone, especially a woman, who doesn't want a romantic partner. It's just so completely out there.
Yeah,
so much so that every time you tell people, the answers are always the freaking same. Oh, it's just because you haven't found the right person yet. Or maybe, they tell me I have some childhood trauma, which we all, by the way, have.
They tell you that? Oh, God.
But for me, it's like, look, if I'm happy like this, why do you have to tell me that I have trauma or that I need to wait and find someone? I'm happy. Yeah. So why do you have to question what I'm telling you just because I made a life choice that is different than what other people have?
Yeah.
Well, people don't like that. They don't like it when you don't do it their way.
I know, because it questions really the basic assumption. So the way we love and the idea of marriage and children being the best thing of a woman's life is such a baseline for our society that when you question it, people don't even believe you. It's so out of a mental scheme that people don't even freaking believe you. It's not conceivable.
Well, because if your way of life is valid, then that means that their way of life is not inherently the best way, which means why are they putting up with this shitty husband and their 3 kids that they can't stand? And that means that they may have made like the worst decision of their entire life by marrying this asshole. Yeah, I can see why people don't react well.
It's gonna stir some stuff up.
I do think I do think that monogamy is great and works for a lot of people. I do honestly think that. But the problem is that why do we normalize these things? Why don't we tell people and kids and youngsters that they have a lot of options to be happy and they need to experiment and decide what's best for them? That's my whole point. Is not that everyone should be single. I don't think that's the best solution at all. I'm thinking just that we should normalize the fact that people are happy in different ways.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there that are never going to be in permanent, long-term married relationships who so you just let them feel like failures their whole lives? Like, fuck that. That's some bullshit. Like,
this is how we get incels.
Yeah. Oh, God.
You want incels? This is how you get incels.
Damn it. Ellie, can you kind of tie these concepts back into a discussion of capitalism? How do all of these ideas relate back to the capitalist world that we're living in?
Yeah, and this is a good question because up to now I kind of felt like I just talked about myself and I rant about how much I hate relationships, but that was not the point of the episode, I swear.
Not at all. Yeah.
So, there came a point in my life where, thinking about my whole experience with relationships and, me reading about anti-capitalism, I kind of started to understand, especially as related to thanks to some podcasts that I listened to, I kind of understood that, it was all related. And I think that to understand that, we can start asking some questions, these are the questions that I ask myself. So, for example, why is it not socially accepted that women can be happy single, even if this should be a personal choice, right? So why there is so much pressure for women to be in a relationship? Why there is so much push that couple have kids or couple everyone, honestly? Yeah. Why is monogamy considered the only real form of, relationship and love?
Yeah.
What's wrong with amatonormativity and the idea that, everyone, we get this idea that true love is only the one within the romantic couple, and why there is this idea that friendships are intrinsically less important than this, romantic couple love.
Yeah.
So taking it all together, I started thinking, probably this is kind of related, like everything in life, to the power structure where we live in. And in particular, it's related to capitalism and patriarchy that are defining how we should relate to each other and love each other.
Structuring all of that for us all the time.
Yeah. And I'm quite confident also, white supremacy is connected to it. But as a white woman, I cannot dig too much into it. But, white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism are related to everything we do. So I'm quite confident that, that is also involved. But I just don't know enough about, being able to elaborate how. But for sure, capitalism and the patriarchy shape the way we love and relate.
Absolutely. Yes.
I don't know what the patriarchy is. I'm ashamed to admit this because I hear people say it and no, let me tell you what I think it is, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Here's what it is. It's a power structure created by men for men, but it also hurts men and also everyone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's all I got.
Oh. No, that's accurate. So that's good. So I have a definition that I posted I think a year ago. So the part I'm trying to translate in real time. So the patriarchy is a social system where men have the most important, power roles, and they are predominantly, they have the most important roles in politics as a moral authority, and they have social privilege, and they control private property. So this is, and granted, there are a lot of different definitions. That was my favorite. But the idea is that, like you said, patriarchy, or the way I would define it, is a power structure where men are on top of this pyramid. So they have this privilege and they have power. And it is true that when we dig deep, patriarchy hurts also men. That is something that I always say, because patriarchy is very rigid and it creates a very rigid gender roles and social roles where men are not allowed to express emotions and they're not allowed to do anything that is classified as feminine. Yeah. Which at the end of the day kind of fucking sucks.
Yeah, that's bullshit. That's some bullshit right there.
I have a lot of friends who are men who have so many troubles finding men friends because it's so difficult to be vulnerable. And so, you're required to show vulnerability to really connect at a deep level with other human beings. And so for a lot of men, it's difficult, especially straight men. And so, oh my God, I don't want to be gay, whatever. And so it's difficult to connect at a deeper level because it's so socially forbidden for them to show this sensitive and vulnerable side, which is very sad.
Yeah. And probably to make themselves vulnerable enough to be in very intimate, close friendship relationships a lot of the time. I know a lot of men that are even more isolated than the women that I know under capitalism, which is very sad, very disturbing and sad.
That's also my experience. And even my experience, just a lot of men I've dated, I felt so bad for them because I really saw a lot of pain of not being able to have this connection with other men, just being able to connect with women, but not with other men. And I think actually the man-to-man connection is very important, having friends of your same gender. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So how do these power structures dictate romantic relationships?
This is a great question. And so going back, there are many, many ways. So first of all, let's talk about monogamy. So I think this is maybe the most known connection. And the idea is that, of course, the monogamy is related to the transmission of private property, right? Yes. So monogamy predates capitalism. It's related, though, to the patriarchy. Because the idea is that they needed to find the patriarchs. Yeah. The patriarchs needed to find a way to get private property transmitted from father to son, and they needed to make sure that the son that the woman had was actually their biological son. Yeah. And before the invention of 23andMe, 5,000, 7,000 years ago, the only way that there was to control women's sexuality, to make sure that they were monogamous. Because let's remember that for the longest time in history, monogamous was not, equal. So women had to be monogamous because they were forced to be. Yeah. Men were never monogamous throughout history because they didn't have to be, because they had so much power within the relationship that they could do whatever they wanted. Yeah. So actually the monogamy as we intended it's relatively new, because monogamy was a control of women's sexuality. It was not the couple. Yeah. And these, I also, I want to recommend books, because I always say to, my followers, it's don't trust me, go and find the sources, ask Google, ask books.
That's awesome.
And in this case, of course, Engels, The Origin of Family, Private Property, and the State. Yes. And the second book that I recommend is Gerda Lerner's The Creation of Patriarchy. Very cool. So that's also, these are not easy books. This is not, a summer read that you can do under, on the beach or at the pool. I mean, I recommend it. That's how I read them.
Is that a power move to read this at the pool?
Fucking go for it, dude. Get your cocktails, get your fucking book.
I mean, they're great. It's just like you really need to be there. Like, you know, the creation of patriarchy is all highlighted and underlined.
There's a lot of sapiosexuals out there now, you know? That's like a cool thing to be if you show up at the pool and someone's reading Friedrich Engel and you're like, oh.
There's only a lot of sapiosexuals on Tinder. Because that's the only place where people identify as that
Take
shit.
a selfie of yourself at the pool with your Engels, baby. Get that on Tinder.
Yeah.
Can you imagine seeing someone at the pool that reads Marx Capital? I would be like, I would freaking talk to that person. I don't even care.
I would, for sure.
I would find it so hot.
Nice Speedo, dude. Oh, what are you reading over there? Whoa! Holy shit!
In one of my all my dating profile, one of them was like, my kinks are saying shit about Elon Musk and talking like anti-capitalism to me.
Keep that in, John. That is gold.
Okay, so we talked about the first point, that is monogamy, right? But also, I think there is something that is deeper than that, and it is a little bit more complicated to think about. And so regarding this connection between this obsession of society for romantic love and marriage, and this related to the nuclear family. And I think this is like really the key to understand everything. So capitalism is obsessed with the nuclear family, because the nuclear family, if you think about it, is just a basic unit that capitalism needs to survive.
A nuclear family being a monogamous couple and kids.
Yes, with kids, exactly. A married monogamous couple with kids.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and first, before really digging into the reasons of why capitalism is so obsessed with the nuclear family, which there are several reasons for, let's talk about something else. So, the definition of love throughout history has always been defined by the power structure. So we think about the definition of love, and for all of us living in the 21st century, we all have kind of the same idea, especially in like Western countries. So we all assume that true love is, you know, in a monogamous couple, married with kids, blah, blah, blah. But that's not always been the case. And looking at the way the definition of true love changed throughout history really shows how it was always related to the power structure. And this is something, again, I didn't create. I'm going to tell you what it is, but I also want you to read the source of what I'm about to say. That is from Alexander Kollontai. Alexander Kollontai was a Russian revolutionary, one of the few women. So imagine the freaking, you know, late 1800s, early 1900s being a woman in politics. Like, it's hard now. Like, she is my freaking idol. I love Alexandra Kollontai. And especially this is an essay that's called Make Space for Winged Eros.
Oh, I love it.
You know, the language is very old because it was written in the early 1900s. I can't remember the year. But this is an essay that you can read in, you know, half an hour. It's for free. You can find it on like Marxist.org. Just Google it. But also my advice is there are also podcasts about it. And in particular, there is a podcast that's called AK-47, Readings from the Works of Alexander Kollontai. And it's done by Christine Godsey, who's like an expert on Alexander Kollontai. So
very cool.
Again, like, don't trust me. Go to the sources, because I want you to look at them and who are more reliable, just like me. Yeah, but the idea is that throughout history, how was love defined? So let's look at when human beings were in clans. So back in the days, the true love was the brotherly love. So the love between siblings. Your brother and sisters and your original blood family was the most important thing. That was true love, more than your partner or whatever. Why? Because the power structure needed to reinforce the clan structure. And so that's why the definition was kind of like, oh, your brother and your sister, they're the most important things in your life.
Yeah.
Fast forward a bit, we have, you know, when the states start forming, so for example, for the Greeks and the Romans. So in the Greeks and the Romans, the definition of what is the most amazing form of love changes, and it is friendship in this case. Why? Because the power structure needed to reinforce the idea that, needed to reinforce these like groups that were outside of the kin, you know, the blood related people, but still within the state. So your friends were the true love. So friendship was what we would call now true love. But I think like the one I prefer the most is about the one about from when it was the Chevaliers. How is it called? Like when there was like King Arthur and all those people.
Chevaliers, chivalry.
Yeah, the chivalry. So the chivalry structure. So the true love actually was the love of a how's it called? The
courtly love is what you're thinking.
that is.
The courtly love, if you think about, so that was considered the love that was worth poems and it was worth stories. And it was the love of, kind of a fighter or whatever, chivalry.
That's pretty much how I operate, like a warrior poet, sort of.
Yeah, that's how I see you.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
So your true love would have been toward the married lady, like Jeff Bezos' wife or something like that, equivalent. Because the true love was considered the love of this like hero to their lord's wife.
To the Lord's wife? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
It was like a forbidden for that reason?
It's unrequited love.
Oh, God.
True love was not sexual. What are you thinking about? Come on, Erica.
Out of the gutter, Erica.
I was thinking about P and Vg, guys. Come on.
No, because true love was, because it's supposed to be pure. So true love was not sexual at all. And it was this feeling.
Okay, you can never actually consummate that love.
No, because you were just raping other girls. But your true love to the lady, it was not.
Yeah, don't make it weird, Erica. You're just going out and raping, but you don't.
Don't make it weird.
You know, your lord's wife waves a white handkerchief as you leave for battle, and you're like, this is my shit right here. That gets me rock hard. Not in a sexual way.
Not?
No. In a pure way.
Yeah, right.
For courtly love, you were supposed to have like an unrequited, like you write poems to this
person
lady,
that never...
and she's like,
and also you risk your life to save this lady who happened to be your lord's wife. Mm-hmm. So it means that you're just doing this like heroic thing to save the ass of your fucking lord. Because why? Because the power structure is dictating what love is. So it was very convenient for these lords that all these people in the name of true love were making all these heroic gestures to protect them and protect their wives. It's bizarre. So if it's pure love, you're not supposed to, but you understand how in all these situations, the way true love, quote unquote, is defined goes and benefit who? People in power at the end of the day. And so now we are not that special and we're not that different because the way we define true love within the monogamous, nuclear family still goes and benefit capitalism. So we think we're so smart, but are we? So anyway, read that Make Space for Winged Arrows, because she explains it better. I hope I explained it good enough, but the idea is, that love, the way we define love is related to the power structure. I also want to recommend an episode of the podcast Red Menace that it's about Alexandra Kollontai. It was published last June, I think, but you can just, look for the episode, which is amazing. And it talks about, love is related to the power structure and the way we love is political. So highly recommended.
Very cool.
very well sourced, this one.
Yeah, I know. She really is.
I'm a researcher. That's what I do.
I love it.
The postdoctoral work is really shining through on this one.
So I would love to hear you talk a little bit more about the nuclear family and how it relates to the power structure under capitalism and how we can kind of break away from that.
No, I told you that the nuclear family is so important. It's essential, not even so important. It's like essential and needed for capitalism. So let's talk about, I'm going to give you three reasons why. And I'm sure there are more, but these three reasons are really...
Top three reasons.
Top three. Let's rank them. Let's do ranking. The top three. There's gonna be we're gonna do a post. It's like the top three reasons for which the nuclear family.
Capitalism hates this one weird trick.
Oh my God, I can't. Reason number one. So the first reason is the kind of more banal one, and is the fact that, capital gets accumulated to the nuclear family. And passed down, right? Yeah. So this is kind of like a duh. I don't know. At least for me, it's like, this is kind of like the easy one. The other one are a little bit more, maybe more nuanced.
Yeah.
So, of course, capitalism wants women, especially, to, get married and stay there because, they need a nuclear family and a married family to pass down capital and make sure, it's not divided, it's not blah, blah, it stays there and it keeps on accumulating. So the second reason is a little bit maybe more nuanced for people who are not into Marxist theory, like Erica. But so it has to do with the theory of reproductive labor and unpaid reproductive labor. So this theory, so what is, first of all, let's start with the basics. What is reproductive labor? Reproductive labor was defined as opposite, or like as, in contrast to productive labor, which is the one that produces capital. Reproductive labor includes making food, cleaning, taking care of the kids. So basically taking care of the existing people and making sure that there is a future generation that can go on and keep on producing capital.
And the re-part comes up every day because you always have to clean those fucking dishes. You always have to put away those toys. You always have to do all of those fucking things every goddamn day.
And can you believe you have to feed kids every single day? Otherwise they die.
Yeah.
Fuck that, right?
And caps
Every
aren't about
day?
that. They just you
Let
don't
them
have to
starve.
do that.
There's a thriving baby market, okay? I shouldn't have to feed these fucking kids every day. You just put a bowl out for them, and they're hungry.
Yeah, you give them a freaking baby bottle for a couple of weeks. They should be fine.
Yeah, give them one of those hamster things, and they can just go
suckle it for a while. Oh God.
But this is a good point, because the idea of reproductive labor is tedious, is repetitive, and needs to be done every day, multiple times a day. Sometimes at night if you have a newborn. But anyway, so the idea is that, reproductive labor is needed, is necessary for human beings to survive and reproduce. So the theory of reproductive labor was, this idea was started by Marx, but actually was elaborated by a lot of feminists, several feminists in the 70s, especially within the movement that was called Wages for Housework. A lot of Italians there, so shout out for my Italian families from the 70s. So if you want to look this up, this is especially the work that was done by Silvia Federici, who's my freaking idol, together with Alexandra Kollontai, Maria Rosa Dalla Costa, and Selma James. I don't think Selma James is Italian, but the other two are for sure. So they connected this idea of reproductive labor within the kind of a feminist framework.
Yeah.
And so what they're saying is that, okay, we know that reproductive labor, like we said, is necessary for capitalism to work.
Yeah.
But who does reproductive labor? And the reality is that in the 70s, kind of like of now, not only reproductive labor is assigned to women, but is done for free by women. Why? Because this is a capitalism. It really pulled the trick on us. So first of all, it defined these things to do as feminine. So it's in the human nature, it's in the feminine nature to want to take care of kids, or to find it easier.
You already want to do that,
to
so it's not really work, right? Because you already want to take care of your children.
Come on, Erica. You do it for love, so it's not work.
Yeah, totally.
It's the principle of get as much as you can for as little as possible, right? It makes perfect sense.
For dudes.
No, for
they're trying to have families.
For anything, for under capitalism, the core tenet is get as much as you can out of your labor for as little
as possible.
as possible. And love, man, that's a good angle to exploit. If you want something done for free,
that's so true.
Capitalism is very freaking smart. So I'm not here saying that capitalism is a dumb system. It's actually a very almost perfect system. There are very few things that we can hit on, but this is good because it brainwashed us so much that this is not true work, that is in the, female nature, whatever that is, and that if we do it for love, it's not real work, that a lot of us do it for free without questioning it. Yeah. And now we are adding the 40-hour work week in addition to this freaking reproductive labor that we were already doing.
And taking care of all of the elderly and all of the people in our networks that we are expected to all of a sudden take care of, especially during COVID, where responsibilities fall so much on the women in families who, the kid's not going to school. Okay, you're going to have to do all of that fucking work to teach them and to feed them and to take care of them all day long. You're going to have to take care of the grandparents who are sitting there needing help and all day long. They don't want to be in a care facility. Too bad for you, lady.
And in fact, this is called, in general, if you want to generalize, it's called unpaid care labor. Because when you talk about care labor, it includes also the one that we do for, our parents, our grandparents. I think that in Italy, of all the people who left their job because, they needed to take care of others during the pandemic was like, I don't have the number, but like kind of like 90% women, if not 95. Wow. It was all women.
Yeah.
Because it's us still doing all this like care labor.
Yeah.
But again, like something that I want to emphasize is this is not, it's women in general, sure, but it's especially wives and mothers. Mm-hmm. So that's why capitalism wants to keep us within the nuclear family, because I do way less care work than my married and mother, peers, like people my age.
Yeah.
Because they do it within their nuclear family. So they prepare dinners and lunches for the husband. They take care, like they do the emotional labor of the couple. They take care of the kids for, statistically speaking, they do the vast majority of child rearing. Yeah. I do less. Yeah. And so I want to read a sentence that Silvia Federici says in the highly, highly, highly recommended book, Revolution at Point Zero, that is, family is the institutionalization of unpaid care labor, because the unpaid care labor happens within the nuclear family. And the reality is that capitalism needs it, and it freaking doesn't want to pay for it, because if it had to pay, can you imagine for all the care work that women do, it would just, Jeff Bezos would not be Jeff Bezos. And so capitalism needs women. And that's why there is another reason why there is so much push for women to stay within the nuclear family.
Yeah.
What, next? Are we going to ask to be paid for it? Are we joking? So, and these were the two reasons, but I think there is a third reason why the nuclear family is so essential, and I want to highlight essential for capitalism, is that capitalism needs us to be isolated. So the fact that we are isolated from the whole community, we're in our small little suburb home without any friends, with, connecting just with our partner. So we cannot leave because we have no friends and no community. So where are we going to live?
Yeah.
It's important because capitalism needs us isolated. Like, capitalism doesn't want us to have a community. Because what? When we have a community, what? Are we going to start sharing resources? Are we going to start, like, caring about others? Like, no.
Like, maybe we don't need 10 fucking lawnmowers on the street. Maybe we can just buy one and we can just share that thing. And
can you imagine? Like, sharing resources. Can you imagine? Or maybe, if you are within a community, maybe when I need a cat sitter, I don't pay for a cat sitter. I can have one of my friends taking care of my cats. Or like, when if there are a community of mothers, or parents, let's be general, parents, if they want to take a trip, they don't need to pay for a babysitter. They can leave it within the community.
Yeah.
But the reality is that this is so, and we will talk about it in the next spoiler alert section, this is so dangerous for capitalism. So it is essential for capitalism that we're isolated and we're just too busy to have a community.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that within the 40-hour work week, cleaning the house, taking care of the kids, a lot of people are just so freaking exhausted that they don't have time to cultivate other relationships outside the nuclear family.
Totally. Yeah.
And that kind of creates this cycle and feeds off. So the more tired we are, the more isolated we are, the more unhappy we are, the more we buy shit to be less happy and to be happier, and in this endless cycle of more isolation and more buying, and again more isolation and less shared resources. Yeah. And so this is, this circle of isolation, I think it is so important to understand why nuclear family is so essential for capitalism.
Absolutely.
And, this is something I always think about. It's like, I see a lot of people in this kind of like a very isolated nuclear family being so they've done everything the society asked of them. They got married young, they have kids. And now they're so freaking miserable, and they don't know why, because they followed all the rules. Yeah. But the reality is that we have to remember that the power structure, capitalism and the patriarchy, they don't fucking care about our happiness. Yeah. They don't want us happy. Actually, it's best if we're mildly sad. Not too sad, but like low level sad. So we write
Still
shit.
productive, but
Dissatisfied.
unfulfilled.
Yeah.
It's a very like tight balance between like, if you're too sad then you're unproductive, but you get some maybe antidepressants, so you get back in that level where you're miserable but still can be productive. And that's what capitalism wants us, kind of.
Totally. Oh,
Low
God.
level miserable.
So bad. So true.
And so what capitalism, so I hope I explained these 3 reasons properly. So the idea is like, so the 3 reasons going back is like, okay, through the nuclear family, we accumulate capital. There is the unpaid reproductive labor or care labor that is done through the nuclear family, and also the idea that this nuclear family is keeping us isolated. So we get fed this idea that if you're out of the nuclear family, you're sad. Like, if you're single, it means you're alone. And you have no one, and you're spending your nights like Bridget Jones eating ice cream alone because you're so sad.
You poor thing.
And we have these myths of like, love being unconditional and forever, and you being better off in a couple even if you're freaking miserable. Or even these like stories of like women need to be saved by their freaking Prince Charming. Oh my God, I freaking love it. And so this idea
Cinderella
that we need to be the Cinderella story, here we are. So the idea that women need to be saved and there is just no other option. But the reality is that all these stories are really fucking us, like big time. Yeah. They're creating this like low level misery where, it's even so difficult to get out because we're just too tired. It's so exhausting.
We're just trying to take care of the basics to try to keep our lives going, so we can't get out of these basic relationships that we're forced into to meet those needs. It's sad.
And this is why it's such a almost perfect system, because again, it creates the circle for which we're just too tired to get out of it.
Almost perfect in that it's almost inescapable. Almost,
but there is. I'm hinting at the next part where I want to talk about a possible getting out of this system, because I always say, like, I don't want to, I criticize society so much, but I don't want to leave people with the feelings like, oh, then we're doomed. We're not. There is hope. There are a few ways to escape capitalism or fight it and rebelling against it in a smart way.
Totally.
And the chapter title for this is Stick It to the Man, Fuck a Bunch of People.
Look at her over there.
Am I right? I mean, that's
she's covering her face over there, just like slapping her face like, what the fuck, dude?
Stick it to the man. Take that, Elon.
I mean, again, like anything that is rebellious toward the way they told us we should live, I love it.
Fuck yeah. All right, folks. So in this episode, we talked a lot about how love faces so many challenges under capitalism. In next week's episode, we're going to talk more about how love can work to defeat capitalism in so many ways. Elide, thank you so much for being on this episode. It was so amazing to talk with you about some of your own personal experiences with love and relationships and how those relate to capitalism. And I can't wait to talk with you more about the way that love can work to defeat capitalism. Where can folks find you, Elide?
So now, unfortunately, most of my content is in Italian, but I think people should follow me anyways, just in case, I start publishing more in English, which I will probably. So my favorite social media is Instagram. So most of my stuff is there, and it's, you can find me with like Modern Cinderellas, Ita is like separated by underscore, but probably if you look for Modern Cinderellas, you can find me.
Totally.
Same name on TikTok, and the podcast is Modern Cinderellas Italia. I have to say that there are few episodes in English as Modern Cinderellas, but I recorded them so many years ago that I don't know if they're good or not, but you can try to listen. And then if you disagree, just follow me and then send me a message.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Elide, and I can't wait to have you on the show next week.
Thank you, and I can't wait to drink another of these amazing cocktails.
Hell yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
That's it for this week. Thank you to Elide for coming on the show. We're looking forward to talking with her more next week. She is one of our top-ranked guests for this program. Thank you to Jesse for putting together the cocktail, as always. You'll get to hear him talk about that more next week. Thank you to Dreamweaver, that's DRMWVR, for the use of our theme song. If you'd like to support the show, check us out on Patreon.
We've got some fun benefits there, like our cool enamel pin. If you can't donate, then please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. That really helps a lot too. We've been getting some great feedback from listeners. If you guys have comments that you want to make about the show to us directly, feel free to email us at cocktailsandcapitalism@gmail.com. Or if you have a story about what turned you into an anti-capitalist, we'd love to hear that as well. We'll see you next week.